So strawberries is your favorite fruit. Do you like chocolate covered strawberries then?
Chocolate covered?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I have them. I make my own like multiple times a week.
Oh, so you're a big chocolate covered strawberries
I'll
guy.
take, yeah, dude. I'll go. I go. My go-to is milk chocolate chips. I put a little bit of coconut, um, coconut oil in there, and
Mm.
so it melts it really good. And just throw it in the microwave. Like keep going back, toggle it back and forth. 30 grams of chocolate chips. Melt it. I cut up halves of strawberries, put them on a plate, and then I just drizzle the chocolate over them. So it's like 80 calories just for the milk chocolate chips, and then another 80 calories for like a cup of what do you call it? Strawberries. So 160 calories for my late night, like indulgent little snack. Yeah, dude,
That's
it's money.
smart.
Mm-hmm.
You've really turned yourself into a chef over there.
Oh, yeah, dude. I don't know if I would say that, but
I see all your recipes and you're making some good shit.
yeah, dude, I just put together a my protein recipe guide, and that's been crushing. People love that thing.
Yeah. That's huge. That's one of the things that a lot of people struggle with
Yeah.
is it's like, okay, I know I need to eat more protein, but and I've always said that, and obviously we just talked about protein on the last episode, but I've always talked about how it's like you want it to actually taste good. Like, because a lot of times it's easy to just get in the whole, like, I'm going to eat protein because I need to eat protein, and like you want it to taste good. So like I've always done. I know for a long time, you remember I did like the protein like cooking with Alex. It was like Wednesday recipes with Alex or cooking with Alex on my
Going live.
live, and I would make all different new like high protein recipes, and that was like I had so many of them, and they're so good, and some of them are
Yeah.
just so simple to make that it just doesn't make sense not to. But I know another thing that people struggle with when it comes to like health and fitness is staying consistent with their plan, and that's like kind of the big thing of today is we're just going to walk through the best strategies that we've found um, to stay consistent with our plans and that we've found to implement with our clients that have helped them stay consistent with their health and fitness routine. And I know I'll start us off since you're mid bite
I'm
of
good now. Yeah. Go for it.
all good. But I'd say like number one that comes to mind for me is that and this is something that I have struggled with a lot in the past. It's trying to do too much, right? Instead of like, it's like right out of the gate, going from not working out to working out 4 times a week, 5 times a week, going from not walking at all to walking for 60 minutes a day, going from not eating, much protein to eating 1 gram per pound of body weight, going from eating, 40% quality foods to 90%, right? It's like it's so easy for us to want to make those big jumps when the best approach is going to be to always just meet yourself where you're at, right? In that season, because there's different journeys like we're on throughout the year. It's almost like breaking it into quarters, right? It's like the 3 months, like maybe 3 months out of the year, like you can just go all out and like you're able to work out 5 days a week and get 8 hours of sleep and eat quality foods and like have no trouble planning those foods out for the week. But then the next 3 months come and like work is a lot busier, and maybe you have a lot more like obligations that those 3 months, and it's a lot more difficult. And what a lot of folks will try to do is like continue to stay with what they're doing when it's like, you know what, maybe we need to move that 60 minutes of walking back to 30. Maybe like you need to focus on 3 full body workouts a week instead of the 5 that you've been doing. It's really about like figuring out where you're at in that specific time frame and meeting yourself there. And it goes back to what we talked about with Atomic Habits not too long ago too. Like if you're just starting out, like start out with a few minutes of exercise, start out with a 10-minute walk around a block, start out with just having like prioritizing protein like at first in your meals. Like it's just like start with these small things and you're going to be a lot more consistent and you can build on those things as you go.
Yeah, totally. I think the thing that'll help set people up for success if they're trying to improve their health and fitness, especially heading into the new year, is it's all about your approach and how you view your process, right? You and I have talked about this before, but it's like if you are going to be in the mind state, and I kind of want to play devil's advocate here too on a slightly different topic or approach here, but if you can look at your time horizon and go, okay, I want to do it this time because I want it to stick. I want it to be sustainable. I want it to be something that I don't just do and then I get the result, but I have a very low ability to keep it. If that's you, then I'd encourage you to look at and go, okay, if I want it to stick this time, that means that I have to do it in a sustainable way. And it doesn't matter how fast in the short term that I get to where it is that I'm trying to go. If I do it in an unsustainable way, what's the likelihood of the stickiness of it after I get to XYZ goal or to what body weight or whatever it is that I want to do? Did I do so in a fashion that was so unsustainable that immediately I did it so quickly that I go back to my default habits to when I originally started? And you kind of go in the snowball effect. So I see a lot of people in that boat. However, I also see people that can have success with it with more of a short term mindset and more of like a sprint approach. Because I've heard Elon say like, you know, take your 6 year goal and do it in 6 months and like condense that time frame. And there's something about like shortening your time frame and giving yourself this kind of like arbitrary short term finish line, not like an end all be all, but just like you kind of condense things and it gets you to take action and do like a lot of things in a short amount of time. The challenge with that for people is going to be like, you got to know yourself. I think you got to know your personality. I think you got to know the characteristics. I think you got to know what you've done in the past and what you're capable of. So like maybe somebody a little bit more advanced can take that approach and kind of do like a sprint style. Um, if somebody doesn't quite have the experience with moving at that kind of pace and that kind of speed, and you get there, your ability to sustain what you just achieved might be a little bit more difficult for you, right? So I think it really comes down to knowing yourself and who you truly want to be. We talk about that identity piece, like who do you want to be this time? Is it because you're trying to get to somewhere as fast as you possibly can because there's some sort of destination, there's like a cruise or there's a wedding or there's something like that, and you're not necessarily worried about keeping the results, you just want to look and feel phenomenal for this short-term event? Then our advice to somebody like that would probably be a little bit different, right? We'd probably just say, yeah, go for the sprint. Like just do it as fast as you possibly can. If somebody is a little bit different and they were like, I'm concerned more with health and longevity and those things, then you and I would probably tell them like, hey, let's start and build very atomic habit style, like incrementally. And we're going to build off each thing daily, 1% better. We're going to go week to week and try to get a little bit better and take more of that kind of approach. So I think it depends on the person. I think majority of people are going to be in that bucket, but like, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point. Is that there are certain people. I think it's a very small amount of people that
It's
can just
small.
like
Yeah.
they can sprint and still be able to stick with it. And maybe they know when to dial it back at a certain point. It's like I'm going to sprint for 3 months and then I'm going to dial it back. That is a good point. Kind of building on it though, like just some things within both of those first two that you mentioned and I mentioned. Habit stacking can be good for either of those folks, right? The person who can sprint, the person who's going to be sustainable. It goes to atomic habits. It's the like having things that you do after the other thing. So it's like I get up and I'm going to do a meditation. Right after the meditation, I'm going to get a workout in, and then I'm going to eat a quality high protein meal. Right? It's like you have these things. It's like right after I brush my teeth, I'm going to read 5 pages of a book. Right? It's like having the thing that you do after the thing that that is going to be like an easy area for you to know. It's like the cue, right? He talks about like a cue for it.
Yep.
He's like, okay, when I do this, then I'm going to do that. And you could add 3, 4, 5 different things that you do in the morning or in the afternoon or, whatever it is. That's a huge thing. I also had focus on one thing at a time. So this is going to be great for that person who needs that sustainable approach, which is most folks that we've found is just focus on one habit at a time or 1 to 2 habits at a time. Don't focus on 10 at a time. Focus on a few. Once you master those or you get into a better place, you can build on those habits or you can add a new one in once you really are in a good spot. And the last thing around that as well is like that's great for each of these two different avatars as well is the setting up non-negotiables, like just daily
Mm,
things that you're like, I'm doing these 4 things no matter what. Like this is my like low level, like worst day, craziest day that I can do no matter what. And maybe that's just getting in 100 push-ups, a 15-minute walk, 150 grams of protein, and like uh, the meditation. It's like
Yeah.
whatever it may be, right? It's like these things, these two things, these four things, these five things are my non-negotiables. These are the things that help put me in the best mindset. These are the things that help me feel my best going into the day to be successful. These are the things that are going to move the needle towards my goal of wherever I'm going at. So those are three big things that I thought felt kind of like they're almost like sub things to those initial two that we talked about there.
Yeah, and those are great strategies. Those are great tactics. They work. Like they've been tried and true like the whole time. And so we're talking to the majority of people who are probably going to be in that sustainable approach. That, like I said, there is going to be exceptions to the rule. There is going to be anomalies, and it's usually somebody with some sort of experience or previous history that can move really fast, and they just have a sickening grit and ability to white knuckle through it and like keep their results. There's going to be people that do that, but that's not the majority, right? There's going to be a select crowd that can do that. But I think at some point you got to be able to adjust to some sort of sustainability if your goal is to keep your results, right? Or to find a more sustainable approach that is doable for the long haul for you. It might not be as aggressive as it once were. Maybe you can go ebbs and flows and seasons, but I think anytime you find yourself in extremes, it's not going to be beneficial. So, just keep that in mind. I think one of the best things to do if you are taking the sustainable route is to chunk it down so simple that you can practice the art of doing the thing or actually showing up to do the thing. And then when you can do that, it builds the callus of, okay, I'm telling myself subconsciously that it feels uncomfortable now. What Alex said, I can partner this new thing that I want to do with something I'm already doing. And that could be the cue. That could be the signal for me to show up to the thing that I actually want to do. And I think dumbing it down to so simple and not overlook that, not take that as like, oh, that's too small. That's not going to make an impact. When in actuality, those little gold nuggets are what you stack daily. And then eventually on a long enough time horizon, you can look back and go, man, look at where I'm at now. Look how many bricks I stacked now. And so just focusing on that sole purpose, that sole thing, we like to call them anchors, whatever that is for you, the things that you can do that are like almost in your sleep that are non-negotiables for you, that you're like, even if I have a terrible day today, I did my non-negotiables. I harnessed my anchors, and knowing that I can lay my head on my pillow tonight feeling accomplished, I'm going to take some wins, take some W's, and go into tomorrow and be a little bit better. And that incremental progress is really everything, man. That 1% better each and every single day. You messed up, so what? Expect it. That's another thing is I think people, even at small incremental progress, I think we have this mindset of it's not going to be enough, or it is going to be enough. And anytime I face a failure or a hiccup or a speed bump, that means I failed. That means my process isn't working. When in actuality, I encourage people to embrace those things to come on. Just expect them. Like, you won't be blindsided by them. Like, expect to get an extra email at the end of the day at work where you're going to have to stay longer. Expect your workout to be compromised in some way, shape, or form. Like, expect something to come up that ruined your plans of going to the grocery store and meal prepping. Like, when you expect those things to happen, I think, and harness more so in what's most important is not the thing that just happened to me, but how I choose to respond. Do I choose to go get the quick, convenient option because I couldn't go to the grocery store? Or was I expecting something to come up and happen and get that flat tire, and I had a backup plan anyways? Or I'm really good at reiterating, overcoming, and adapting what just happened to me so that I'm going to win regardless. It doesn't matter what comes up. And if you can embrace that mindset, I think those are the people that are successful, and successful fast too. Is like, if you want to go fast, train your brain to expect the worst case scenarios to happen or to get thrown curveballs, and train yourself to be like, you know what? I remember that time when I got the flat tire. I remember that time when, I got in a situation where I needed to stay longer at work than anticipated. I remember when, like, and you're going to use those as nuggets and reference back to them and go, even when that happened, I still made it happen for myself. I still was scrappy in the process. I was still had the ability to start sloppy. I still was like, I got it done and I proved to myself. And that's just going to be compounded interest and self belief that you can do this in the process
Yeah.
versus going like, man, I'm making only these incremental 1% improvements each and every single day, but I got completely derailed because this happened. And now I feel like I'm starting from scratch again. It's like, if you expect those things to happen and you anticipate things to happen, I'm not saying give them energy, but just don't be blindsided when they happen. Um, it's more so how everything is in how you respond, how you choose to respond, because it is a choice, right? We get to choose how we respond to those things. We may not have a choice on the things that happen to us, right? Those can be out of our control. But I think harnessing on doubling down on the controllables is going to help you pay huge dividends in your process to help you along. So that would be my 2 cents in terms of finding something sustainable approach to keep you going.
Yeah, that's huge. And that, like, the whole kind of being prepared thing, it goes into some things that I've always talked about when it comes to food, because food is going to always be the hardest thing for most folks, right? It's like food and exercise, but I know like that's food is clearly the biggest driver, right? It's like
Yep.
the nutrition, the stuff you're putting in your body is going to help you be in the best shape, lose weight, lose body fat, gain muscle, like all that stuff is going to be around that, assuming that you have some sort of exercise routine. But I've always found that keeping foods around that are easy in a pinch is a huge thing. So, like you were mentioning, maybe you were planning on making something, it falls through. Oh, well, I got yogurt, I got oatmeal, I got some frozen grilled chicken in the freezer with some frozen veggies. I got some minute rice. I got all these different things that make it so that you know what I can just like kind of on the fly. I already have these things available just in case if I need them throughout the week. Right.
Yep.
And I always do that personally. It's just a huge thing where it's like, you know what, like if I don't have time to go to make something, or we didn't make something and have leftovers, like it's like, okay, I got all these different foods that I can go to that I'm going to be able to. I know it's a high protein meal. I know it's like pretty quality, and I put myself in a good spot. On the same thing, I like to talk about, and this is something that honestly I haven't done as much for a while, but like I've always preached this to my clients is like daily and weekly planning sessions, and it's probably something I should get back into as well, where it's like, what habits do you got to put in place? And I guess I do kind of still do this in some respect, where it's like I have a morning setup that I'm doing right now that it's like, okay, like what time do I got to get up? Like what do I have to do for that day to be able to achieve this in the morning? How long is it going to take? How big of a workout am I going to do? All these different things the night before. But I think it's huge, like start of the week, even at a bare minimum, it's like, when am I going to work out for the week? Right. It's like Sunday, sitting down for even 5 minutes and just looking at, okay, like, oh, this way day doesn't work. This day does. Like, when are my 3, 4, 5 workouts going to be? Put them in the calendar. And, if you have to adjust on the fly based on something coming up, then you can do that. But at least you have them in and you can be committed to those workouts in your best capacity possible. And then as far as like, and that's food as well, right? It's like Sundays, like for a lot of people, maybe you're not working, you can go to the grocery store, set yourself up for the week when it comes to food. That's going to go a long way towards being consistent. Because if we have foods that we've prepped for the week or foods that are available, like it's so much easier going through making those quality decisions, because I know like for a lot of folks you fall off a little bit and it's so easy to just be like, oh fuck it, like this week's over, and then all of a sudden you're starting back again on Monday, and it's a frustrating cycle that you can get stuck in when you think that any sort of like mistake or anything that you do that's like not perfect what you were trying to do, then it's like, well, it's not worth it anymore, which is just the wrong way to go about it. Because we're always, like you mentioned, you're going to make mistakes, expect the mistakes, expect the things not to go perfect or ideal, but it's just giving yourself the grace too to just push past and like continue doing what you were doing before, because we don't have to be anywhere near perfect to be successful and to move the needle forward.
Yeah, I think that's really cool when people see that happen too and go, "Oh man, I wasn't perfect in this process." And guess what? My energy level still stayed right where they're at. I was able to manage stress even though all these things happened to me, but I remained in control. I was able to prioritize protein with my meals because I had some high quality snacks on hand when something came up and I had to miss the grocery store. Like, so yeah, dude, I like to call them your setup days. So for me and for most people, then my clients that I work with, we have setup Sunday. Take 60 to 90 minutes on a Sunday to set yourself up for success for the week. And that most of the time that is in getting your groceries. Like Alex said, spending 5 minutes to set in place in stone your time, location, where your workouts are going to be throughout the week so that things maneuver around those and so that your workouts aren't just like these floating things that get done out of convenience throughout the week. Taking that little bit of time on a setup Sunday, or in some cases, it might be setup Thursday, whatever day for you that you have a little bit more time before you get into your busy work week or your busy time frames, use that day as setup. So I like to call them setup Sundays in my program. And just spending 60 to 90 minutes to do that, and whatever you can fill in that 60 to 90 minutes that is going to set you up for at least the next 3-4 days, if not the entire week, will pay huge dividends going forward. And I think people overlook that constantly is they don't set a time frame ahead, and they don't have a setup Sunday or they don't have a setup Thursday, and they're like, well, I kind of got the habits. I had a good week last week, so I can just build off that momentum and just wing it. And when you're in that position of just winging it, things get done out of convenience, and convenience doesn't necessarily elicit the type of consistency that's required to get to where you want to go. And so if you're just winging it the entire time, it's like, cool, you get lucky sometimes and sometimes you crush it, and that's awesome, but it's not consistent enough to get the outcomes that you're generally desiring, right? So if you find that, man, I'm not where I want to be, or I'm not moving at the rate that I want to move, it's very simple. That's why I love health and fitness, is because you can't cheat it. Look at your inputs. If you desire higher outputs or greater outputs or more phenomenal award yielding outputs, just look at your inputs. What's your effort level look like? What's your planning look like? Do you have a setup Sunday? Are you doing simple things like that? Alex and I are always about leverage. Like, what's the least amount of work that I could do that'll give us the highest output? We'll set up Sunday, and having the right mindset around when things happen, I'm going to be able to persevere, work around, through, above whatever obstacle that's going to show its face this week. If you just possess those two things from a mindset standpoint, and you have some sort of setup Sunday or whatever day works for you, you eliminate a lot of the other worries and stresses that you're going to face during, a week or monthly basis, just by doing those two things alone. So that would be my advice in terms of like how you create the biggest leverage for yourself to be able to kind of, one stone, multiple birds, so to speak, like knock it out of the park. Give yourself the most leverage where you can pull that handle and be like, all right, if I do this one or two things, I can take care of a ton of different things just by focusing on these, versus thinking that you have to do like 50 different tasks throughout the week. It's like, no, do these two that are needle movers. Everything else will kind of take care of itself. It'll fall in place.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that's huge. And, we've thrown a lot out at you guys today. Hopefully this has been enjoyable. I will just drop a few quick ones here, quick hitters at the end, that have been helpful for me and some of my clients in the past as well. Tracking your calories. I think it's a huge thing when it comes to consistency, depending on what your goal is, right? If your goal is to lose body fat, being in a calorie deficit is essential, right? And you're going to need to be able to figure out where you're at. And a lot of times the thing with calories is it's tough to really know where you're at. Even if you think you're probably pretty far off of what it actually is, because it's easy to just like have that little, like the certain things that you have in your plan like get bigger and bigger and bigger, and you think it's the same amount, but it's not. And so that's a huge thing to keep in mind. And then the last thing I would say is just to review what you're doing. Like if you can look at maybe like on the end of a week with your setup Sunday, you can look back at the previous week and see where you could maybe improve. That can be a good habit as well, to just like even look back for a sec, just be like, okay, what were the things that came up? Like, how can I maneuver those better this week? Kind of taking the input, like you said, the inputs, and like being able to figure out where you can be a little bit better, where you can move forward a little bit quicker can be helpful. But I would just mention that like there's a lot of stuff that we threw at you today. Don't take it all in, right? Just like figure out like one or two things that you can use to be better with the consistency and start there. I think always a good place to start is like to meet yourself where you're at and just focus on sustainable habits you can actually stick with. If you take nothing from us, like I think that would be a great starting point for folks to start at. But then like if you're there and you're like, yeah, I'm more like experienced with this, then the different things that Matt talked about, where it's like having like shifting your mindset around those mistakes and things that happen, and like having a setup Sunday and different things like that could be a really good approach for you as well. So hopefully this helped out. Again, like all we ask from you guys, if you do enjoy this, just share it with one person, right? Share it with one friend, family member, coworker who enjoys this kind of topic and maybe is trying to be a little more consistent. But otherwise, we really appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your day and week to watch or listen to this on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, wherever you're watching. We hope you have a good rest of the day and week, and we'll be talking to you soon.